Hello everyone, welcome back to Fanblade. This week we are carrying on with the restoration slash customization slash bastardization of the Hohner B2. If you've seen last week's video, good, carry on. If you haven't seen last week's video, then go and check it out, and then you'll know how we got to where we are now. And just on the subject of last week's video, some people were wondering why I didn't sand and polish out the body, because it's still quite ripply. The UV finish has, it still needs work. The reason why I haven't done that is because there is a lot of work needs doing to the neck, in particular correcting a very slight twist in it, which I'm going to do by sanding it flat. That's going to mean a lot of sanding up and down, particularly in this area, may wind up scuffing up the finish. Even if I mask it off, masking tape is fallible, and I'd rather not scuff up a perfectly sanded and polished finish. I'll save that for afterwards. As I also said in last week's video, I'm going to make this fretless. The temptation then is to see how the UV finish works as a sealer on a fretless fingerboard. Now, that gets a little bit weird. I'm a little bit scared of that because you can see how wavy and wobbly this is. I don't know if I can get a nice, flat, perfectly smooth level finish in UV cured resin on a fingerboard, which is why I have a test piece. This old neck is just an old neck that I have hanging around. It is already fretless, which will save some time. There's a chunk out of it there. It's been on multiple bodies. There's holes all over there. It's not a great neck, but it is perfect for testing out some UV cured finish on a fingerboard. It did also occur to me that if this works and I can somehow level out a UV finish to a perfect playing surface, there's no reason why I couldn't do a fabric finish on a fingerboard. But let's just park that thought for now. So that's actually where we're starting today. I'm going to get some 400 grit and just scuff up this surface, then put some UV resin on it, then I'm going to walk away for an hour, because I have a feeling that all of these ripples and everything should just level themselves out if you give it enough time. I think I was rushing on this one, and that's why it's still a little bit ripply. But I think if I can somehow prop this up so that it's perfectly level, then it should just smooth itself over. And then I can take it out into what's remaining of the sunlight today, and hopefully get a perfectly smooth, perfectly hard surface in one shot. Hopefully. I'm just flabbergasted. It's perfectly flat, it'll take a shine and a polish, and it's been, nearly 2 hours? I love it when a product exceeds all expectations. Good grief, I want to chuck this on a body now. I have a body. It's not a very good body, and it's not a very good neck, but with a bit of Frankensteining, I should be able to play this thing in probably about half an hour or so. Right, This may look like a base, but it's not actually a base, it is a test. And the thing we are testing is how much damage can I inflict on a UV resin coated fingerboard with some round wound strings. Yeah, I'm going to take this through to the studio, give it a quick setup, and then play it rather aggressively for an hour or so, and we'll just take a measure of how well it holds up. Ooh. Who slaps on a fretless in 3/4? Good grief. I was hammering on that thing for about half an hour in an extremely unkind way, and like you can see that it's been played. There's a little bit of damage there, but it's mostly just surface level. In fact, I think it might have just been residual polish which rubbed off. So that is concept 100% proved. You can seal a fretless fingerboard with the UV resin. It will level itself out nicely. It will sand perfectly. It will polish beautifully, and it sounds good. Right, on to the real one. I suppose I'll start by pulling the frets out. Yeah. Right, it has become fretless, and I'm starting to amass quite a collection of old frets. There's a fair bit of weight there. I should try and smelt these down into a bridge block or a little statue of Joe Dart or something like that. I've got to fill these slots with something, and the question you always have to ask is, do you want to fill them with something light so they can be seen, or something dark so they disappear? And I'm actually going for a hybrid approach. This is a super thin piece of elm veneer that I've just cut, and this is going to go just about 5 or maybe 8 millimeters into the edge of each slot until we get to the 12th fret, where it will go all the way across, and then it'll switch to the treble edge like there. The rest of the slots are going to be filled with some very thin Quilla, which is maybe not a perfect match for the rosewood. I don't have any rosewood, otherwise I would use that. I could use rosewood dust, but there's sort of a shortage of that until I do some sanding, and I don't want to do the sanding and then have to fill the slots and then re-sand. It becomes logistically unhinged. Quilla is fine. It's close enough. Yeah, it's a time-consuming process, but I think it'll look quite good. The slots are filled, and from here on in, it is all about the sanding, because we've got a very slight twist to take out, which means I need to level it off just on this side a little bit. I also adjusted the truss rod to make sure it was as straight as it possibly could be, and it's actually not that straight anyway. There is a very slight hump just across these 4 frets here, so this will require some very precise sanding, and to that measure I have 3D printed a radius sanding block. It is a multi-part thing that slots together, and then you have a brace that goes across there. I will of course glue all this together, but that is a 10-inch radius sanding block, which should hopefully give me some degree of control, because I can't put this in the regular jig. It's not going to fit with the body on there, so I'm going to have to go very, very slow, very careful, check my work as I go. It's not my preferred way of doing it, but it's how I'm going to do this one. Right, that's dead flat. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm not particularly happy with the fact that some little chips, which I tried to push them down, but they've just broken off. There's a few little holes and little gaps I've got to fill. That's fine. I've got to seal this anyway before I put the UV resin on. The last one that we did just before was sealed with super glue, and of course this one's going to be no different. So for anyone who thought I was replacing the super glue with the UV resin, no, they are complementary. They work nicely together. So I will seal this wood, make sure it's dead flat, then we'll put the final coating on. It's had about 5 or 6 coats of glue. You can see how I've got some of this really bad chipping. Hasn't quite filled itself in. This is going to be a perfect test for the UV resin to see if a nice thick coat of that will just level over the top of all of these. The weather has been cold. It has been raining quite heavily all morning, but there is a break in the clouds right now. So I'm going to do the thing with this. I'm going to sand it out to 400 grit, then I'm going to put on some UV resin, then I'm going to let it sit for a while, and then we're going to take it outside and see how it comes out. That is about as flat as I think it is possible for a thing to be, until you start getting into the realm of quantum measurements, and then of course everything changes when you try to measure that. But look at it! I'm not that impressed with how the hybrid lines have come out. I think the Quilla is a little bit too light, and of course the Elm went a little bit kind of caramel coloured, and yeah, there's just not enough contrast between them. maybe don't do that. Maybe just pick a colour and stick with it. And that's where we're going to have to leave it for today, I'm afraid, at the risk of dragging this series out a lot longer than I had really intended to. I'd sort of hoped to knock this off in one video, but life gets in the way, takes up some time. Right now it's time for me to go and edit this video, so next week we will look at the pickups. I've already tried making some. They didn't work out that well. I'll tell you all about it next week. And of course the rest of the hardware, and we will string it up and we will play it. We will finally get to hear how it sounds. So make sure you come back for that next week. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for subscribing, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.